Hey, beautiful people. So it's Ronya-Lee here. It's been a minute. I'm taking a little bit of a break from social media, but I did think it was important to come on and say a few things that have been on my heart lately. I hope you're well. I hope the ones that you love are well. And that's going to look different for different people depending on where your loved ones are in the world. Things are a bit cray, but continuing to give thanks and practice gratitude for the things in the world that are going really well and that deserve to be celebrated. I want to leave space for that. I haven't been on in a while talking about this particular subject. I do want to say a few things. I want to say a few things about the DNC. And I also want to say a few things about the genocide that is currently taking place in Gaza. So I want to state that I stand unequivocally with the people of Palestine. I stand with Palestinians, and I stand against genocide. I believe that what is happening and what has been going on for 10 months now is a genocide, not a war, not some type of blip that needs to be figured out, but is literally ethnic cleansing, a genocide. And the ICJ stands with me on that. I stand with the ICJ on that. And it continues to burden me that there is a deafening silence in our communities, small and then wider. There has been nothing stated, nothing said, no statements of solidarity, absolutely nothing from many of the arts organizations and institutions that I am affiliated with and know of currently. And that is shameful. It's also telling. I recall following the public execution of George Floyd in 2020 that there were a lot of statements from organizations. Now, we knew then and we also know now that those statements were not necessarily genuine statements or rooted in fact. However, they were at the very least performative movements towards speaking to issues that many people were stating were of importance to them. And so on the flip side of that, we have seen many college students put their educations on the line, as well as professors, to stand against the genocide of the Palestinian people. And yet organizations that claim to stand for Black lives, organizations that claim to stand with LGBTQAI+ people, organizations that claim to celebrate artists of color, have been completely silent when it comes to what is happening in Palestine and what has just recently been expanded to the West Bank. So I just want to name that. I also want to name that this is a unique situation. And I want to say this because I continue to hear, well, what about Haiti? What about Sudan? What about Congo? So I also stand in solidarity with the people of Haiti and the Congo and Sudan who are experiencing civil unrest, hunger, rape, all kinds of just horrific things. So I want it to be very clear that I stand with the victims in those spaces, or I shouldn't call them victims. I stand with the people who are being harmed in those spaces. But I want to also be clear that what's happening there is different. It's different simply because, to my knowledge, and again, school me if I am wrong, to my knowledge, it is only the genocide in Palestine that American tax dollars are being used to fund. It is the genocide in Palestine that billions of dollars have been funneled towards. Our tax dollars are being used to kill people in Palestine, which is very different from what's happening in Congo and Haiti and Sudan. And often, as a cover for Democratic leaders specifically, people will say, well, what about Haiti and what about Congo and what about Sudan? And I like to remind those people that the leaders that you are so interested in protecting are not saying anything about the conflicts in those countries either. So I just want to name that. What's particularly disturbing about our tax dollars being used to fund a genocide is one, of course, who wants to be a part of killing other people, and in a way that is just so obvious. It's not like we can say we didn't know or we weren't sure. It's been live streamed for us over the past 10 months, so we are fully aware of what our tax dollars are being used to do. But the other part of that is that there is so much suffering happening right here in these United States of America. People are living in their cars. People are struggling to find consistent employment. People are struggling to meet their basic needs, take care of their children, to eat, to pay off student loans. Basics that people are struggling with in this country. There's no money to take care of that. There's no money for healthcare costs. We can't afford it. We can't figure it out. We're not sure what we're going to do for the housing crisis. But there is money, billions of dollars, to kill Palestinians. So I find that problematic. I invite you to consider with me why that's problematic, but to each his own. The second thing that I want to talk about is the DNC, so the Democratic National Convention. I want to be very clear that I think there are issues with both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. I just want to make that very, very clear. I also want to be clear that I am not, nor have I ever been, a supporter of Trump. I want to make that very clear. We seem to be in a space where anytime somebody criticizes the Democratic Party, what's leveled against that person is that they are therefore a Trump supporter, or that they are anti-Black, or that they are anti-fill in the blank. So I think I need to state from the beginning my thoughts on that. So moving to the Democratic National Convention, you know, it was about a week's worth of activities and performances and all of the things. And I just want to name one that comes at a cost. I want to name that had to be paid for. And how was the Democratic National Convention paid for? It was paid for by very, very wealthy donors who expect something in return for the money that they put up to put on this show for the week. So I want to name that. I also want to name how disgusted I was and continue to be at the fact that actual Palestinian American Democratic delegates, these are delegates, were kept from not only speaking at the Democratic National Convention, but they were kept from entering the building for a number of days. I want to be very clear because maybe we missed that. So one, they were not allowed to speak at all. They were promised they would be allowed to speak, and then they were not allowed to speak. But two, on top of that, they were kept from entering the building. They were barred entrance to the building. Now, if Trump had barred entrance to a building to any group of people, we would be calling him all of the names: homophobic, racist, etc., etc. So I just want to point that out. Just letting you see that. You can decide if you think that's balanced or not. It felt like a performance, right? And that's what it was. Speeches and platitudes, a lot of talk about justice and coming together and democracy and all of the things. But at the end of the day, given an opportunity to demonstrate true democracy and justice by allowing the Palestinian delegates, who again, mind you, were told they would be able to speak, by allowing them to speak, that would have been a display of democracy and justice, right? But that opportunity wasn't taken by the Democratic National Convention organizers. And I would dare say Kamala Harris herself, they decided no, they cannot speak. And then on top of that, it was decided that they would not be allowed into the building. This reminds me of Martin Luther King Jr.'s words when he talks about being careful lest we be integrated into a burning house. And that's what I feel like has happened. We've been integrated into a burning house, right? We have moved through a period where we are now in representational politics. There are a lot of people in politics who look like me. There are a lot of people in politics who represent many different marginalized groups of people, but they seem to represent marginalized groups of people only in a performative manner, right? It's just like Ronya-Lee is sitting here. Ronya-Lee is Black. Ronya-Lee is the daughter of immigrants, and Ronya-Lee is a woman, right? But nothing about Ronya-Lee's policy, nothing about Ronya-Lee's lawmaking or actual work in the political sphere is making life easier for, less difficult for women, immigrants, and Black folks. So that's where we are. We're in representational politics, where Ronya-Lee doesn't have to actually do anything for the people that she looks like, or for people, period. She just needs to be here because she's Black and she's a woman and she's the daughter of immigrants. That seems problematic and disturbing. The last thing that I want to name in relationship to the Democratic National Convention is that if it's not clear to you already, both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party have been bought and paid for by corporations. We are concerned at this point about the potential loss of democracy, the potential loss of freedom and justice. And what we seem to be missing is that our country has already been sold to corporations. Corporations own and run this country. And if you don't believe me, go do the research. And if you're interested in additional resources, reach out, although it'll be so easy for you to find it on your own. So I'm sharing this to help us to maybe shift our priorities and to maybe do the work of further educating ourselves, rather than thinking that we're just going to get up on election day, vote for somebody, and then go back to sleep while the wonderful people we have voted for take care of us in the country. Because we should know by now that that is absolutely not what's going to happen. That no matter who is in office on November 5th, we still owe it to ourselves and to our community to be the ones who practice justice, to be the ones who practice and move forward with liberation, to be the ones who educate ourselves, to be the ones that free ourselves, to be the ones that demand more of the politicians whose job it is to serve us, whose salaries we pay, by the way. All right, that's all I got. Peace.